Hello, my dear ones. I think that we'll do a little bit of a spiritual video first here, and then I'll do some videos on subject matter instead of Q&A, although we're loaded down with Q&As. But I think that people have been asking for subject matter videos, so we'll do some subject matter videos. But I wanted to do the first one, just take a few minutes and talk spiritually to all of you and see how you're all doing that way as well, because sometimes the word spirituality gets people confused or they don't understand what it means, but all it really means is that you're awakening. You're pulling yourself out of creation, and your life is now ran more in the moment. You're allowing consciousness, or you're allowing the Creator to work through you, instead of you're so much a part of everything and creating everything. Now you're kind of stepping back and letting that work through you. More things can get done spiritually if you are just a vehicle for that, and you're working more in the now. You're keeping yourself more conscious. Now, I'll read you a poem by Mahesh. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, my friend. But and this is where he's pulled himself into. And see if you can get what he's saying about the one reality versus the dual reality. It says, nonsense, words or language having little or no sense or meaning. This is the nonsense of enlightenment, is what he calls this. And I'll just read you some of this. I must start out by stating what a paradox this essay is, for I am going to use words and their meanings to describe a sense of nonsense. This itself is a reflection of what a paradox life appears to be, as all things are nothing other than facets of the one and the only God. For God is the singular eternal being that is and simultaneously displays itself as the hierarchy of all manifestations. And I think that it's important that you understand that, in the sense that for those that want the ultimate awakening, you want to awaken up out of creation. The ultimate goal, just my opinion, is for God to maintain its individualities, all the essence that it's created out of its consciousness, and to train each individuality to be consciously aware while still creating in creation. So it's interesting to look at that journey and understand that before you can understand God, you have to go through the only doorway there is to get there. And the only doorway to understand who created all this and how all this is and what all this is you're the key. You're the only key. Each and every one of you are the only key to understanding who this eternal being, this infinite being is. You can't take a spaceship and find God, because this world is not the world of God. This is a dream world. And the more you pull your attention away from it, and the more you have more lucid dreams, the more you start to see this world loses its realness. Anywhere you put your attention becomes real to you, because your attention is what turns on creation. So when you decide to come into creation as an individual piece of God, you start looking, you take on these bodies to look through. You take on the body that individualizes you. That's the ego. Then you take on the mind. The mind has three different bodies to it: the etheric, the higher mind, the subconscious, the ego. You have the universal mind, the mind all individual minds come out of. And there's been a lot of books written about the universal mind, and we even talked about that. It's called Cosmic Consciousness, the experience of it, the oneness that you have with all of life. The problem with that one is that it's still in creation. It is a high experience, Christ consciousness, It's talked about Buddhism, Hinduism. I'll talk about this level. The Radhaswami Yogas, however, did discover further levels of awareness beyond cosmic consciousness, or the Christ consciousness. And then the Ek Masters, of course, come out of the higher than they by far. So it's just finding beings that have developed or have experienced these higher levels to teach others how to awaken. Because you all are already from these levels. It's just you're looking too intensely through the eyes of creation, the eyes of the mind, the eyes of the emotions, and the eyes of the physical body. Creation takes one reality and makes it two. So we say the singular reality is that which is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient, that which we call God. The problem with the word God, it almost gives the connotation of a singular deity. And that it's singular, all right, but a deity it ain't. It's hard to understand consciousness because there is no beginning and no end to it. Notice that in NASA, and notice that in astrology now, or not astrology, but astronomy, they've changed their thinking. The Big Bang Theory is on its way out, and now there is the no beginning and no ending because they can't seem to find a beginning or ending, and everything is made out of stardust. But it's just understanding that consciousness, intelligence, awareness, it's untouchable, it's unseeable, it's only who you are. And there's no definition to it. Definition comes in the mind, and you need two sides to something to define it. Because without two different sides, there is no need for definition. There's no need for analyzing. So we're coming up in our scientific community here where there's this over-analytical thinking, over-analyzing. They're looking too deep. And this is the problem with new research and stuff. They keep getting deeper and deeper and looking deeper and deeper into the finite worlds. And it's like you will get lost there for eons of time. The creation is massive. It is almost endless into itself because it is within the endless body of God. Nothing can be on the outside or separate than that which is infinite, that which is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. You can't have God and the devil because there is no space involved in consciousness. It invades all things. So things that manifest out of consciousness manifest within the body of consciousness. And you hear that talked a lot about as the manifestation of life within the body of God. And so he's talking about that. It says, for God is the singular eternal being that is and simultaneously displays itself as the hierarchy of all manifestations. The display is referred to as the mad dance of ecstasy. And there's in Hinduism and Buddhism and everything, we have more poetic ways of talking about things like that, like creation, the eternal dance of God. You know, where that which is infinite, that which is formless, becomes form. And you can understand why in the need to experience itself, because if you want to try something, try to sit in a form of contemplation or meditation where you are not trying to look at or be or move or travel out of. You're just totally in the moment. And allow yourself to start merging with all things. Because as you pull away from thought, you'll start to feel yourself expanding. Because thought limits you to the thinking processes, remember? So when you stop thinking, you start expanding. Because that's who you are. You're part of that eternalness that exists. And it's only the mind and your ego, the individualized self, the emotions, the physical bodies, or whatever you have. These are all limits the manifestation of eternalness. It limits who you really are. But it gives you a field of dreams. It gives you activity. It gives you differences. It gives you interactions. But when you look through the eyes of your lover or through your animals, you're seeing yourself. You're seeing God. At the core of all things is consciousness. The bodies limit consciousness from knowing itself, because you can't be here in full awareness of consciousness, because it can't be here. This requires individualization. This requires extreme limitation of who you and the Supreme One is. I got to use the Supreme One, but because there is no supreme, there is no higher or lower in consciousness. Everything just is, and everything comes out of that soup of awareness of consciousness. Everything manifests and grows and constantly manifests. Like you had a big vat of all the stardust of all the worlds, and it was everywhere, and it just started manifesting. Things just kept manifesting. So when one breaks free of duality or the dual consciousness, there's only the self. And that's what Jesus talked about, Buddha talked about, all the spiritual giants talked about, because it's the way it is. And it's how you get here and how you get free from here. It is just talking about how it is. There's different words that are used and different teachings out there, like karma and things like that. But it all means the same thing. The display is referred to as the mad dance of ecstasy, that is the primal cause of every apparent thing cycling through expression and contradiction. All these things include you and me, and is nothing other than our own eternal being. Of the paradox this essay presents, there is a Vedic saying, "It takes a thorn to remove a thorn." So here is my thorn. It may help to remove one of yours. As I journey deeper and deeper into the eternal being that we are, the less and less I was attracted to figuring out the meaning of life. The who, what, where, when, and how of all will deeply concern me in the beginning of my journey became less and less plausible for the mind to logically grasp. And what he's saying here is obvious. The less you use your mind to create and to think and to plan and to build duality with, the more you're pulled back into the one again. And you start experiencing it with others, and you feel that sense of oneness. And that's spirituality. When you see someone in the spiritual realms, in other words, people that are working on themselves or individual souls of awakening, that's the recognition you have between each other, is you recognize on the inner that you're from the same source, and they recognize that too, and it's an incredible union. The bell tolls for logical figuring out anything, for any sense of meaning to existence that mind can come to by thinking it through. How I finally came to this is beyond an imagining that was present at the beginning of my journey. It is beyond any sense I had made of what enlightenment might or was. Yeah, I mean, it does mean now mind can't come to any logical meaning about enlightenment, nor can it feel. Your mind does not feel. So you have these different bodies to express that impotence in duality. You have these bodies to help you experience the different levels. And it goes on and on and on. The Supreme is that which knows no knowing. For sure it is my experience. And that's the thing. Consciousness is. And there's no self-knowing of it. That's the mind looking back on itself, figuring out the different experiences that it's had in creation, and identifying or classifying these experiences as good or bad, how that affected it, and all that sort of thing. But the reality is, you are always an eternal being, experiencing itself in creation. And so you have fun. Look at that movie, Michael. That's exactly, I keep bringing it, but it's a great movie to show you. You come fully, you wake up and you have fun here. You can still have fun in your body's conscious, but you've got to get them healthy to enjoy that. So I won't read much more. This is Two things are on the horizon in my experience now. First is the compulsion within my present personality to actively come to a sense or meaning of any or everything, which will never exist. This energy is felt, and now I am able to feel it and allow it, and simultaneously not mentally, emotionally, or physically act on it. And that's important in the sense is that you can only merge with it. You don't want to act on it. You don't want to play with it because you've been doing all that. You want to merge with it and become part of the tremendous awareness that's out there. And that's your survival. There's no pain, there's no suffering in consciousness. And you can't be hurt and you can't be killed. So that's the eternal part of all things. So as they're talking about the moms and the dads creating bodies for these eternal beings, each and every one of them, you're creating bodies so God can experience itself in creation. But then it's God creating God to create itself, which is more God. It's just becoming aware of itself. Cool stuff when you start, because as you let go of the mind, and that lets go of social consciousness. So as duality starts to end and the one reality begin, it is an extreme aloneness that takes place. And it's a deep sense of alone. Not loneliness, a deep sense of alone, because there is only the one. So that deep part of yourself that you've always wondered. Maybe you've been in the woods alone, or somewhere in your room alone, or somewhere alone, and that haunting depth within you. We're always trying to find something because we don't want to look at ourselves. We're afraid of that. It's so massive. We sit down for a minute and then we want to turn on the TV or we want to do something. You need to bask in the beauty of the now, because that is a forever ecstasy, forever joy, but is intense, extremely intense, and there's levels to it. That's why you can't get too deep in it and still maintain bodies. You can get enough of it to enjoy your experience on all levels and pull yourself free when the body's time to go. So it's just assuring you're a place, and it's giving you the answers that you want deep within yourself, and it's hooking yourself back up. My enlightenment, my awakening is to nonsense, because that's creation. Creation means nothing. Some of these experiences rip you apart, and yet they're Lego pieces. It's amazing how all this is, and it does to itself to temper itself, to strengthen itself, to individualize itself, to make that individualized self a creator in and of itself. I mean, you can see how massive. It's unfathomable. It's unfathomable. To an absurdity of logical trying to figure out anything. And this is the thing, is you can't figure out anything when you're working from creation, because that's like medical doctors treating effects. You can treat effects all day long and you can't cure anything doing it. You can look at creation all day long, you can look at the mind, you can look at the emotions, and you'll never find God. You'll find levels that'll bring you into ecstasy and joy like you've never experienced or remember experiencing. And there's all kinds of things. It's endless, but it's still not your home. It's still not who you are. And it's just so massive. That's why I say you're all so beautiful beings. You're all so massive. Even you little ones, little bodies there, we know you're not little souls. You're big souls in little bodies. Your parents get a good sense of that because of your awareness. And never want anybody to suppress that. Some of you young ones here are big, powerful souls, and you're here to help and help this planet turn itself around. And it's a pleasure to work with you. But it goes on and on and on. So Mahesh, I appreciate the poetry. It is beautiful. I always love, I love all spiritual things, because it's just all about beauty and love, respecting all things, because you know all things come from the same source. So why do you judge something that comes from the same source you do, just because it has a different look to it? I mean, that's the whole idea, is that everything has a different look to it. And that's what you want. You don't want everything to look the same. I know women, they don't want anybody to wear their dress. What was it? Someone was wearing another dress. Who was it? She's wearing one of the girls' dresses. It wasn't, who was it? I forget. Anyway, but movie stars and stuff, they don't want to see anybody wearing their dress. So beautiful, beautiful poetry and stuff. Spiritually, just detach yourself. Learn to let go. It doesn't matter anymore. What once was so at your neck, let it go. Doesn't matter anymore. As you let go of things, you're opening to the higher consciousness to work through and take care of these situations for you. So sometimes it's better if you just sit back and let creation move its own self down the road, and you free yourself from that. Because the intensity right now, if you'll look at it, everything's breathing in. And you see that in the sexes. Before it was a man and a woman. A few times, even in the Native Americans, you'll find the gay coming along. Now you're finding it all over the place. And do you really think an eternal being cares about anything like that? It's all about the experience. There's no labels in consciousness. That's the mind labeling. And the mind is conditioned by religious thinking and belief systems that people have, not truth. Truth is, and it doesn't really matter, because all life does is experience itself. But if you'll look at this spiritually, everything's becoming one again. In Hinduism, they talk about the out-breath and the in-breath of God. And the out-breath, of course, is when it creates creation and creates and creates. As creation moves from duality, it moves toward the negative cycles. It pulls itself back in, because negative can be quite destructive. So it pulls it back in. So if you look, everything's becoming one again. Males, females, it doesn't matter anymore whether you're a male or a female. It's all about having fun and experiences. People are losing their identity as being male or female. And that's the way it is. You're going to lose. And it's difficult, because you do lose your identity as an individualized self. But you lose it for the bigger self. And it's so worth it. Because it doesn't matter about the little self anymore. You've been in here long enough in creation. You've all suffered enough. Those that come to this channel, time to wake up a little bit and have some more fun. Major awareness. So this is a hope that you can practice this and work with the observation technique of just watching things instead of thinking about things. Just watch things. And you'll begin to realize that the mind is the thought, is the thinker of the thought, and that sort of thing. Here's an old saying. Is it I think, therefore I am? Or is it I am, therefore I think? Think about that one. And so, we love you guys. I think I'm going to go on now and do some more videos. We'll cut this one, make it a short little spiritual video. But you want to try to get away from judging others and judging anything. This is all mind stuff, the emotional components. Set all these things to the side, and just like you're just finally kicking your shoes off, laying back in a big easy chair, and you're just going to rest. And you're going to watch life just kind of move on. You can move with life and do your things, and take your children to school and be in sports or whatever it is. You can go through those things. But watch yourself do those things. Kick back even further to where you can't kick back anymore. You are at who you are. And that is a big merge with all life. You'll start feeling like everything is a part of you, and that you're a part of everything, which is true. There's just incredible levels of experience and joy and ecstasy and freedom. Freedom is a big thing, because the mind and emotions is a big ball and chain to your experience here. It's how you have experiences, granted, but it can be a big ball and chain around that experience. And so once you can let go of the emotions, because letting go of the lower forms of experience brings you the ecstasy and joy of allness. And there's just nothing to define that. You're home. There's nowhere else to go. You finally made it. And that's all in awareness. And there's no bodies to it. You are a free being to view and play whatever you want to do. And there's a lot. It's difficult to remain in the now and still remember to pick up your kids or do something. I forget a lot of times things because I'm just try to be so much in the moment, and then I go, I'm trying to get my mind to alert me anytime I need to know something or do something. Does a pretty good job, but once in a while, you'll go, yeah. Because it just takes a while getting used to being and using the mind, or using the mind and play being once in a while. It's better to learn to just be in that moment and just let your consciousness be. Don't think. Let the mind think and you not. That's some work. That takes a little practice to work on, and you're going to be doing it in your daily lives, where you're going to be doing your daily lives, but a part of you is pulling back, watching the mind doing things, watching you do your work at wherever. And you just keep working on that part of yourself to keep looking back, keep pulling back, not being involved, but being totally involved, because as you pull back, you'll see everything involved. So you'll actually become more awake. As you start to feed your children raw foods, and particularly the fruits and the berries, your children are going to soar in their awareness. And we've detoxed a ton of young people before. 2 years, infants. And I remember a little 2-year-old we detoxified, and the black stuff come out of this little 2-year-old was a biker son. Very bad biker. President of the Outlaws of Ohio, to give you an idea how bad. And walked into a Hell's Angel bar. They beat the holy crap out of him, put him in the hospital. When he got out of the hospital, he walked right back into their bar. So that's kind of the guy he was. Became a good friend of mine. I like people like that, actually. He realized he was an old soul. He thought he was just a new soul on the planet, couldn't get with anything. I said, no, I see you. You're an old soul. And it turned him totally around. And he was learning out of body, traveling and everything, but he was so used to putting the shotgun up to his wife's face. But his kid got pretty violent for a while. But when we detoxified him, he totally went into the peaceful and into the awareness. Well, he started accelerating in school to the point the teachers really didn't like him, because he could see so much about what they were saying. It didn't fit. He saw more to the puzzle than they were seeing, because they were working from the mind and from academics, and he was working from consciousness. With all that is a piece of consciousness. He is working from more totality of a view. And so it was tough. He was in college in his sophomore year, I think it was, in high school. I mean, this kid became extremely smart and awake. And that's what I'm saying. You parents can turn your young ones into more aware of who they really are, and you've got some major spiritual beings that you're bringing into this planet, because this planet needs it bad. So anyway, it was a pleasure coming with you on a small little spiritual video there. There's so much, but I find sometimes I have not a lot to say spiritually, because it's just the act of surrender, the act of letting go, the act of every moment you have the choice of thinking or observing. And I try to stay out of that mind thinking. We're so busy, it's hard to do that, because the mind is pulling you here a lot. There's just so much to remember, but I remember better when I don't use my mind. I can see, store, and then my mind just presents it when I need it. You have to trust in that. But have fun with your spiritual exercises. Learn to just let go and let your body absorb into the universe as big as you want to get. Don't limit to how big, you can expand yourself. And because remember, you're infinite beings having a physical experience. a mental experience, and emotional experiences. And these are just experiences. They're worth a dime a dozen. Some can rip you, some can make you laugh, and some can make you cry. But they're just experiences. They're not who you are. So always be who you are. Experience this, experience that, okay. I love you and hope that we all work together spiritually. I hope that we work on the inner planes a lot spiritually. There's a lot going on. The masters are, oh my God, there's just so many beautiful ones of you. They're out traveling. So much going on. So with great love, to the next spiritual video. I know I don't do a lot of them, but I do try to lace it in with the health videos, because that doorway of getting your physical body healthy is also the doorway of getting your emotional body healthy, and it's also the doorway of quieting the mind. When you do all these things, then you, the real you, starts to come out and shine. So it's worth it. And with great love.